Trapmore gang, I'm back with another video, and today I just wanted to have another little recap on probably one of the craziest stories that I've come across in history. Now, you might have seen recently I did a little update on this channel. I did some reacting, I did some breaking down to some of the history behind my St. Louis drill documentary. Craziest gang war that I've ever covered in my life. One of the most crazy, mixed up, complicated, confusing, deadly stories that I've ever come across. Okay, it makes Chicago look like I said in the video, it makes Chicago look like Disneyland. I don't know if it makes Chicago look like Disneyland. It makes Chicago look like Six Flags with ARs. That's more of an accurate description. But I wanted to just jump in and highlight probably the most crazy story in that video, in my opinion. There is a story in this video that I would say is just one of the most wild stories that I've ever seen in ever, basically. And the reason why this story is so crazy, because I think this story really highlights what happens when you have two of the baddest gangsters in a city, all right? You have a couple of the most bad, tough, serious gangsters, all right, in a city going head to head. And you might have heard the idea of the unstoppable force and the immovable object. You know, it's a conundrum in science. I don't know why I'm making this so complicated. I'm turning this into a goddamn lecture. But the idea of the unstoppable force and the immovable object, it's like there's no calculation in science, all right, for something with unlimited energy on both sides, all right? If a force is unstoppable and is pushing an object that is impossible to move, there ain't no solution to this equation, okay? It's impossible. It damn near might start another Big Bang and just destroy everything in the universe. This sometimes happens in the streets, all right? For every gang, for every member, for every hood, there's always a baddest guy. You know, King Von was kind of heralded as the baddest guy from O Block. King Von was the biggest demon, the biggest killer, had 7 bodies, had all the bodies in O Block. You know, unfortunately, he came up against somebody, Lil Tim, who was rumored to have put in a whole lot of work in Savannah, Georgia, rumors of potential bodies, all sorts of madness, all right? That is sort of a similar equation where it's like, people thought King Von was unstoppable, right? And if he was still alive today, he might well be facing life for several murders, right? But he wasn't. Unfortunately, people thought he was an unstoppable force, but unfortunately, for the fans of his music, his friends, his supporters, he wasn't an unstoppable force. There was another force that, unfortunately, on that day, at that time, in those circumstances, was stronger. Now, that doesn't diminish anything that he did. That doesn't diminish his gangster. You know what I mean? For all of the people that like to say, oh, it's all cap, serial killers, all cap. Well, look, King Von killed all them people. He was the baddest MF out of that neighborhood. Same way that if you saw my video on No Limit, you know, G Herbo's hood, there was a guy called Man Max. They said he had all kind of bodies, okay? They said he might have had more bodies than King Von. Now, that guy was the unstoppable force in his hood. Unfortunately, he ended up getting taken out as well. And that story is absolutely wild. I won't get into it right now, but, you know, story goes, he was one of the baddest guys from his area. He had taken out a guy from the other area, Shootout Shells, that was apparently one of the baddest guys from over there. But so have you, he ends up get caught out on a bad day. He gets gunned down himself. And, you know, he was alive for a long period of time. People say that he told on his killer whilst he was on his deathbed. All kinds of crazy story, but that's not what we're talking about today. In this story, the St. Louis story, okay, there's an incident where 2 rappers from rival hoods go head to head. And this is a story of 2 unstoppable forces going at each other, okay? And the result was very surprising, okay? And I'm not trying to belittle this. I'm not trying to trivialize what actually happened in this scenario, okay? This is a real life. These are real people's stories. I'm not trying to diminish this. This ain't a game to me, all right? This ain't sports. This ain't scoreboard watching to me. This is real life. Real lives that are impacted by this situation. But I think this story stands out above so many other stories that I've covered. You know, the Mad Max story is crazy. The King Von story, Lil Tim, that day Lil Tim was more prepared than supposedly the most prepared and ruthless gangster in Chicago. In this story, we see rappers from 2 sides of the fence. On one side, hailing out of an area called 57 Floyd, or there's a group of hoods that are known as the Six. All right. There's a group of hoods that are known as the Six in St. Louis. Oh, one sec. I got to answer. This is an OG call. One sec. All right, shout out my guy Tanks, man. Just had to jump on a quick little call with him. That's my guy. Just had a little catch up. So look, I'm gonna get back to it. All right, look. So this gang war in St. Louis, it was just absolutely crazy. Okay, so on one side you've got the Six, KB6. Now this guy was rumored to be like a very, I'm just gonna say it. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. It's in the video. According to Reddit, he might have had 4 or 5 hats, all right? He was really out here catching bodies, and he was rapping. He was going to war on the mic with 30 Deep Grimy, who was one of the biggest, arguably the biggest drill rapper to come out of St. Louis. We ain't counting no Sexy Red or anything like that, okay? So KB6 was a serious guy from the 6, you know what I mean? Affiliated with 57 Floyd, that whole little group of, there's a whole bunch of group of hoods over there called the 6. And then this crew is at war, all right, with another crew called the 2 from 26 Solway. They call themselves the Big Bucks crew. There's 2 very fire rappers that I'm a huge fan of from over there, okay? Big Bucks Trey, Big Bucks Von. They're just at war, okay? And we're going to get into it. I'm going to react to some of the content from the video. But as I was saying before, what was so crazy is that, like, these are serious guys from both of these areas, all right? All sorts of rumors about this one gentleman from the Big Bucks crew, Big Bucks Elo B, allegedly involved in certain situations, certain hats, you know what I'm saying? Maybe he wasn't quite at the point where he was opening the lids. I'm not even trying to belittle this situation because it's actually serious stuff, but look, he was allegedly involved in a couple of serious situations where people lost their lives, and ultimately these 2 crews were looking for each other. And one of the things a lot of people from St. Louis have said about my video, and have actually just commented on this whole situation, is that it's quite a small city, okay? It's quite a small city. Guys be running into each other all day long. And as you see in the video, you know, you got guys out on their block, FaceTiming, letting everybody know where they're at. You've got guys riding around the city, spinning the block, looking for people. There's guys jumping on IG Live, organizing shootouts. And what unfortunately happened on this very fateful day is that Big Bucks Elo B, KB6, they ran into each other with their respective crews with them, and a crazy shootout happened. And this is one of the only times I've ever seen this, but both of them lost their lives, all right? And several other people that were involved also lost their lives. Now, there's been rumors that maybe there were other shooters at the scene that shot back. That's not necessarily been confirmed. But as far as what the police are dealing with, they turned up to a scene where everybody's dead. They turned up to a crime scene. Both KB6 and Big Bucks Elo B both lost their lives. They had a shootout. It's unclear exactly who got shot first. There was different kind of rumors about it. But the police turned up to an absolute bloodbath, bodies all over the street, and they're just trying to get to the bottom of what was going on. And this ultimately leads to an insane gang war, an insane back and forth. And one of the craziest things that you're going to see in the video is that Elo B and the other guys from the Big Bucks crew, they recorded a massive disrespectful diss song that was scheduled to be released the very night that this shootout happened. This video gets released that evening while the bodies are laying in the street. Okay, and then that song is then retaliated to with a whole other diss song, dissing Elo B's gang. It's called 2K, 2 Killers. They're from 26 Solway. They're the 2. They be doing this, you know, the 2 have a 2 sign, and then their ops, they crack the 2 like cracking trays in Chicago. And a lot of people say that these songs led to a whole bunch of murders happening. Like, I read comments in the video where it said people couldn't believe how many bodies dropped over these songs. So look, I just want to react to and show you some of this video. If you want to go and watch the full video, you're more than welcome to go and check it out. All right, Murder Capital, Gang War in America's Deadliest City. But what you're going to see, man, is that this war between the 6 and the 2 just went absolutely crazy. And this shootout that happened, it is honestly one of the wildest things that I'd ever seen in a video before. So let's just take a little look at it, man. I want to give you a little taste of what was going on, and you're just going to see how absolutely insane this situation was. For the most popular song by the Big Bucks clique by far is a track called Big Bucks Anthem, which features Von together with another Big Bucks rapper called Elo B, or simply Elo. The music video for the song now has over 2 million views, but unlike Von and Trey, Elo's music career consisted of only a couple of songs that were dropped few and far in between, and more than music, Elo would become known in the streets as a shooter who wasn't afraid to rap about his gangbanging activities. He was apparently the section's top hitter and had an impressive collection of customized guns, seemingly being obsessed with guns and rapping about them a lot. His Instagram also has no posts, but plenty of saved stories that show him toting guns and money, and he had a lot of beef with people he used to be cool with some even claiming that he was the reason that the 6 Deuce Crips had become so hated in St. Louis, while others claimed him to have been the one to spark the latest war between the Rollin' 60s and the 6 Deuces. But to understand why Elo would become so hated, we have to go all the way back to where the animosity between these two sides first became deadly. In 2016, a young man called Rookie, also known as Ruger Rock or Rook 4, was a popular 17-year-old from the north side of St. Louis. Rookie and his friends repped a clique called OTF, with one of these friends seemingly being none other than Elo B, or Elijah OTF as he was going by at the time. On around the 5th of December 2016, at around 6:30 PM, Rookie and 2 friends were driving north on the 5400 block of Riverview Boulevard. After just leaving their school, the Northwest Academy of law, where they had been watching a basketball game when another car reportedly drove close to their car and someone inside opened fire. Rookie, real name Damani H, would pass away from his injuries, while his friends would fortunately end up surviving the attack. Rookie's death was a major loss to the people close to him, and they started a clique known as Rookie Gang in his honor, while Elo 2 was heartbroken, wishing that he could bring his friend back, whilst promising that he would push for Rookie, the meaning of that not being entirely clear. At the time, Rookie's murder would go unsolved, but if online rumors are to be believed, Rookie was killed by none other than KB6, 57 Floyd's biggest rapper, with some even claiming that certain songs like the song Long Live KB6 from the rap group Sixers confirms that KB did indeed kill Rookie, with one Redditor pointing out specific lyrics that supposedly confirm this claim, like the lyric about KB catching someone on a one-way street, although Rookie wasn't actually killed on a one-way street but on Riverview Boulevard, a major two-way arterial road that runs through the northwestern part of the city. However, there is a known one-way street where KB may have indeed caught a body, which we'll discuss later on. But whoever was behind the murder of Rookie, his death must have flipped a switch in Elo, who would allegedly catch a body of his own a few years later in October 2018, when 18-year-old Kamal Jackson Jr., known in the streets as Elo B Slime, was gunned down in a drive-by shooting on the 10300 block of Lilac Avenue. Elo B Slime was part of a clique known as BBG or Buki Baki Gang, who were seemingly cool with big bucks back in the day before falling out for some reason and becoming each other's biggest enemies. And as the wildest rumor goes, after shooting Slime, Elo would get out of the car and grab the headband from him that had the big letters spelling BBG, which he would then put on himself and take a picture that he posted online. So I just want everybody to understand how crazy this is, right? I mean, this is extremely disrespectful. It's these little details that make me realize, like, this story is just so much deeper and wilder than anything I've ever seen. Look, we've heard these rumors. I mean, we all remember the rumor of, you know, allegedly, a lot of people have debated this, but allegedly the female assassin from Chicago, KI, being the person who was responsible for killing O.D. Perry, who O-Block was named after, right? And that was fueled by this rumor that O.D. Perry was known for carrying the silver revolver. All right, there was this specific silver revolver that O.D. Perry was known to carry, and after the murder, KI begun popping up with that same revolver, or at least a revolver looking very similar, which kind of fueled these rumors that she was responsible. See, this was O.D. Perry with the infamous silver revolver tucked into his pants there, and then there's this famous picture that went around afterwards of KI with a very similar looking revolver. Now, for the record, okay, according to Reddit, according to some Redditors, it was not the same gun. If you look at the picture, it's got slightly different details. The trigger of the Magnum's silver, but KI's one's got a black trigger. It shows the barrel. It's not quite the same size. So look, respectfully, I know a lot of people have tried to debunk this and say I'm wrong. I was never saying specifically it was the same gun, but this is why people think this, okay? This kind of rumor. But I never heard of nobody stealing their ops headband after committing the murder and then wearing it. And again, I feel like this is just so important because it just shows how senseless some of these crash outs actually are. Like, these aren't guys that are thinking about their future. These aren't guys that are thinking about a trail of evidence or the cops coming after them. They're just trying to flex these murders on social media. They're just trying to they want everybody to know. They don't care what the police think. They want everybody to know. BBG headband from the person that got killed. Just crazy, crazy, crazy details. Elo B Slime was allegedly the brother of a guy known as Trey Fours, and apparently also cousins with KB6 from Floyd. This murder, if true, explains why Elo was so hated by his ops and would be dissed relentlessly in songs from rappers tied to both BBG and the Six. There have also been rumors that Elo may have killed an older member from the Six from the Acme mob set called KO, real name Dion Woods, who was killed in May 2019 in a quadruple shooting in one of the blocks claimed by the Six, this shooting also claiming the life of another person. KO is a respected name, with many younger members often paying their respects to him. In fact, some people on Reddit have even actually claimed that KO was the father of the new generation rapper Man 6 or his cousin. Although this hasn't been confirmed, Man has heavily repped KO on his social media and music and merches it on his life all the time. Others have disputed the claims that Elo was actually behind this shooting, suggesting that he was actually locked up at the time, with the real culprits possibly being the 30 Deep clique. But what is for certain is that later that same year, Elo B's side would experience another major loss when in October 2019, a member of the Big Bucks, known as Caleb 2's, real name Caleb Smith, was gunned down in an alley on the 8300 block of Strathmore Place, about 2 miles away from 26 Solway's Hood.
Here in this alley, right here behind me, this is where the shooting took place. Right behind that police car is where the victim's body is lying right now, just at Strathmore Place. A number of people said that they heard the gunshots and described the sound as coming from 2 different calibers of guns. The police were putting out evidence markers in the alley as people who lived nearby watched. Witnesses told us that they saw the dead body of a man in his 20s lying in the alley on the north side of Strathmore. There was a search in the neighborhood for suspects, and a witness told me that officers checked nearby homes to make sure that none of those suspects was hiding in a home. One man was on his porch nearby with his 2-year-old daughter when he heard the gunfire.
It was like maybe 7, 8, 9 of them. And then there was an exchange of a small caliber gun.
Already the following day, the police would make a breakthrough, arresting 19-year-old Darion Thomas for the murder, who was better known in the streets as D-Baby, member of the Six.
An update to a story we first brought you as breaking news at 10. A man now faces a murder charge after a 17-year-old was found shot to death in a Jennings alley. Darion Thomas is charged with first-degree murder, accused of killing Caleb Smith. According to court documents, Thomas and another man chased Smith into an alley on Strathmore Place near West Florissant. The man Thomas was with shot at Smith, but police say Thomas is the one who killed the teenager. His bond is set at $1 million.
But the police wouldn't stop there, and eventually in 2021, 2 more people from the Six were charged with the murder of Caleb, including Christopher Williams, aka Lassie, and Jalen Sims, aka Pac-Man, who was seemingly a close friend of KB6. It would turn out that this was only one of the many serious charges that Sims had been collecting, because already in November of 2019, he would be arrested and charged with car break-ins.
New tonight, a serial criminal busted in West County. The arrest caught News 4's attention because of the suspect's rap sheet. Jalen Sims is one of 3 men arrested for breaking into cars in Chesterfield. That took place just off Chesterfield Parkway. It's worth noting that's just down the street from the Chesterfield Police Headquarters.
It's literally almost right across the street from our police station, so bad choice of the criminals for that, because again, our guys were right there, and we had several officers in the area very quickly.
But once again, this just goes to show you, man, these guys do not care. They don't care about having a shootout and catching a body down the street from the police station. This officer is saying, look, that was a bad place for these criminals to do this. They do not care. They have zero care for their well-being. They have zero care. These aren't planned hits. These aren't the hits of the mob that are well planned out, well executed, and they're covering their tracks. These are just straight up, we're banging it out. We do not care. We're stealing headbands. We're broadcasting everything on social media. And I just want you guys to really understand this mentality in St. Louis. It's very similar to what we see in Chicago. But I just feel like everything that we know about Chicago, the drill scene, the wild incidents that happen there, the crazy crash outs, St. Louis, to me, just dials that up even more. And it's crazy. Charges of armed...
A source tells us other charges will be coming,
which was followed by 2 charges of armed carjacking, one of these leading to the death of a man, which Sims would plead guilty, receiving a 25-year sentence. Meanwhile, after Caleb's death, members of 26 Solway and Big Bucks would form a clique in his honor called the Caleb Gang. And although there are more people who have died on both sides of this rivalry, it was likely that these losses would help explain a later tragic incident that would end up happening during the summer of 2020. The year 2020 in St. Louis wasn't just the deadliest year in the city's history since the 70s, but the deadliest in the entire country's history over the past 60 years when it comes to cities with over 250,000 inhabitants. Unfortunately, the war between the Six and 26 Solway was about to reach its brutal culmination that year, leading to one of the most insane incidents in the history of St. Louis drill. It was Wednesday, July the 29th, 2020, and KB6 and his partners were outside in the Walnut Park West neighborhood, hanging in their hood on the infamous Floyd Avenue in the heart of the Six. As local news would report, July had been the deadliest month of this already deadly year, with 50 murders that month, making up an insane 1/3 of the year's overall homicide tally at that point. And like always, the great majority of these homicides had taken place in North City. A bit before 1:45 p.m, a stolen car would creep through the neighborhood with 3 armed men inside. This car would drive down the 5500 block of Floyd Avenue, and eventually the people inside that car would find what they were looking for, spotting KB6 himself, real name Malik Taylor, seemingly on his own, making him look like an easy target. The people in the car would open fire, hitting KB, who would fall to the ground next to some parked cars and pass away at the scene. That was only the beginning of what was about to transpire, because after the trio in the car had shot and killed KB, his friends, who were seemingly hanging somewhere close by, would rush to the scene and immediately open fire on the car with the 3 assailants. What happened next has been open to intense debate, but according to one version of the story, the person sitting on the front passenger seat was 18-year-old Daysav, real name Dijon Nearing. He would attempt to shoot at the people taking aim at the car, and by accident would end up shooting and killing the driver of the car, Big Bucks Elo himself, real name Elijah McKinney, while other versions claim that it was either KB6 himself who was able to take aim at Elo B and shoot him dead, or that he was even able to kill both Elo and Daysav before succumbing to his injuries. I just want you guys to understand how insane this is, alright? Now, this is an incident where everyone shot it out and basically You know, there were no survivors on the scene, all right? And there's been rumors of some of KB's guys, some KB guys popping up on the scene and opening fire. There's been rumors of, you know, friendly fire between these guys, but really no one can really tell what happened that day, to be honest with you. Even maybe the 1 or 2 people that allegedly may or may not have been there and escaped, it's not even guaranteed that they could really understand what was going on. Like, this is a wild shootout where you got a bunch of guys, you know, at least 4, maybe 5, maybe 6, maybe more guys just all shooting it out. Really, nobody knows. And a lot of the facts of what happened that day actually went to the grave with KB6 and Elo B. And again, I think this is why these stories are so poured over, so analyzed. You know, a lot of people seem to hate on these guys on Reddit for analyzing and debating on these topics. A lot of people hate on me for even having an interest in debating these topics. But the reality is, this is some of the craziest stuff that we have ever seen on the streets. This is a true crime story like no other. And it's a story that can't really be told in full. It is a story that's always going to be speculated on. I can never say definitively. This is why I give both sides of the story. I give various different theories from Reddit on what happened, because we're all just trying to piece together what happened, because the only people that truly know what happened that day are no longer with us. And that's why this is such a unique and just completely... just a completely I want to say one of a kind. I mean, I'm sure things like this have happened elsewhere in America at different times. But as far as drill music goes, we've never heard anything like this. And the only people that really know are not here anymore. Even the police probably don't know what happened. Other theory is that the people that came to KB's help actually ended up shooting and killing Elo. Von would also later discuss the events of that day in his song Fallen Soldiers, where he rapped that Elo would have made it home if Von had been with him, but in any case, it was mission completed because KB lost his life and Elo got his revenge for Rookie. Von would also seemingly claim that KB didn't kill Elo, and that he knows what actually happened, but it's nothing to talk about, possibly implying that it was indeed Day Sav who killed his own friend by accident. Although according to official news sources, it was in fact the people on the street who likely killed Elo, as well as then killing Day Sav, who was seemingly gunned down while attempting to escape the scene on foot, as his body was found outside the car, with the rapper Nudie 6 later posting a picture of his body at the scene on social media. Meanwhile, there was the third assailant who was sitting in the back seat of the car, 17-year-old Josh, aka Tay2's, real name Joshua Amerson, who had somehow managed to escape the situation on foot even after getting shot himself.
Yeah, Vic, of the 3 men who were shot and killed in North City.
So I actually had to remove some stuff from the video here because of a copyright claim, but there was a bunch of news reporting about this, and you know, there was an individual that got shot and got away, and even that we don't necessarily know exactly where they might have been sitting in the car. There's been a lot of speculation, but again, even with this individual, this isn't somebody who's spoken out. This is somebody that is obviously abiding by the street code, not speaking to the police. We really have no idea. You know, maybe within the community, maybe within insider circles of these gangs, there's a bit more of a knowledge of what's gone on. But again, even this individual, we don't know how much they knew. We don't know how much they were privy to. We don't know how much of what went down they were responsible for or not. And this person is lucky to be alive. After being posted as a story by Big Bucks members, scenes were captured and published by the St. Louis Dispatch, showing women breaking down at the scene, describing it as a drive-by shooting, while Washington Post, via Associated Press, published a picture showing the scene taped off. But while Josh had miraculously survived the shootout, things weren't over for him, because later in 2020, he would be charged with not just the murder of KB, but also the murders of Elo and Day Sav, since he was the only surviving member from the party who had been the aggressors in the incident. This was ultimately a sad loss for all sides, and it really shows you just how much of a dead end this cycle of gang violence truly can be. However, shockingly, a few years later in 2023, the charges were suddenly dropped due to constant problems with witness cooperation in the case. While Josh had made the case that KB6 fired first, and they simply returned fire in self-defense, with prosecutors even being unable to pin down witnesses to testify against that version of events, describing most of the witnesses as in the wind, clearly a wider issue in the city. But Josh wouldn't get to celebrate for long, because only days later, police would close in on him once again, this time arresting him on drug and gun charges, after he had tried to flee in true St. Louis style, taking the cops on a high-speed chase. Now again, I feel like you can tell even the police are desperate to get to the bottom of this situation. They're trying to find witnesses. They're saying witnesses are in the wind. Now I don't know if that means that there are no witnesses. I don't know if that means that there were witnesses that they identified that didn't want to talk. I don't know if that means that witnesses were taken out in order to not even give their opinion about this situation. I don't have any evidence for that, but we've seen that in cases before. There's all sorts of rumors. I mean, there was rumors that King Von, his murder cases, witnesses were going missing. Absolutely crazy. that would end in a spike strip. Following the failed escape attempt, the police would find Josh in possession of an illegal weapon, as well as 800 pills in the car that was believed to be laced with fent. It seems that the feds would eventually take over the case, and in 2024, Josh would end up doing a plea deal and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Afterwards, some wild conspiracy theories would surface on Reddit, with one person claiming that it was in fact 30 Deep Grimy who had put money on KB's head due to his own side's war with the Six and the disses that KB had sent his way, which Elo had then tried to collect with deadly consequences. Regardless, in the end, both sides of the war would be mourning the loss of their friends, and comments on Reddit would point out how this drill, where nearly everybody died, is really not something to brag about. Members of 26 Solway would be seen in Long Live Elo shirts after his funeral, while Big Bucks Von actually reshared pictures of Elo B holding the gun alleged to have been used to kill KB6, calling it the KB6 Soul Taker. And posts would circulate on Reddit stating that the city turned against him, but praising him for remaining in the city despite the pressure from the ops. Von and Trey would discuss how the death of Elo B affected them in an interview with the STL platform Views from the Arch, making it clear that Elo B was a problem in the streets.
Elo B.
Yeah. He was a problem.
I was just gonna say, like, it seemed like he evidently was, you know, known.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he got a lot of love and he also got a lot of hate.
Yeah, oh God.
Von would explain how Elo was a loose cannon in the streets and would go to war, right or wrong.
Elo, man, he just one of them. Man, he one of them
Elo,
brothers. Shit, Elo is Elo, so that's basically what it is. Like, so he one of them brothers that like, man, like you ain't telling him like I ain't gonna fake it. Like you not telling him the sky blue, and you know it's blue, man. Cause like I don't know, cause you ain't telling Elo. I ain't gonna fake it, cause the sky blue, you know it's blue, and he tell you it's green, you standing on it. Like on my mom, like he going for it's green. Nobody ain't telling. He gonna go to war about it. On my mom, like
basically.
Just.
See, this is why it goes back to what I was saying about these guys being unstoppable forces. These were two people that were some of the most feared and you know, alleged killers from their area. As you just heard from Von and Trey, Elo B was, you could not tell Elo B what to do. You could not tell him how to see the situation. If he was trying to crash out about something, he was trying to crash out about it, okay? And you can only imagine when somebody like that, right, who's been trying to avenge his friend that was allegedly killed by KB6, you could only imagine what happens when he sees this person. There ain't no planning ahead. There ain't no plan in the hit. There ain't no how we going to get away with this. It's just on-site action. And unfortunately, he went up against somebody, another group of people, however you want to see it, who was on exactly the same kind of timing. And what ended up happening was just nobody could survive. And it's very sad. But realistically, both of these guys got what they wanted. You know, they wanted to catch each other. They wanted to take each other out. They both got what they wanted. It's so sad, and it's definitely not something to celebrate or to glorify. But this is what happens, man. There's always somebody just as gangster, okay? King Von had 7 bodies. He ultimately ended up running into somebody who was just as ready to shoot and kill, arguably more ready to shoot and kill than he was at that specific time.
Yeah. Man, Elo just wild, but he just like, yeah, like, yeah.
Elo was the problem, though. They do love and hate him, but they hate him for a reason.
But the love and hate, I love all that, because they keep it publicity, you know, they keep his name alive, everybody do.
Trey would explain the day that Elo B lost his life was actually the same day that he was released from jail.
You said that when you on your first day out, was that the day that he passed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. First day I had got out of DYS, he had died.
How was that feeling?
Just lost for real. Cause like it's a good thing I got out, then a bad thing, you know, just lost.
Later in the interview, after being asked how much dope they put in a wood, they would diss KB6, saying they smoke him.
What y'all be stuffing in y'all woods?
K. Well, I call him K.
I was talking about like a 3.5.
They're like a 3.5. No, I don't know. I just feel it till it stop. You know, shit, we smoke out the piece, so we don't never know.
For real, just put it in there till it's a nice amount.
Oh.
Big fat wood.
Eerily, the night after that shootout took place, which took the lives of both KB6 and Elo B, a new song from Elo B was uploaded to YouTube at 10 PM, meaning that it was recorded and scheduled for upload before this shootout happened, and in a crazy twist of fate, it went on to become the biggest hit from 26 Solway to this date. This was the track Big Bucks Anthem, which was released together with a music video that had been edited to pay tribute to Elo. Shockingly, Elo would practically predict his own fate on the song, first shouting out his dead friend, allegedly killed by KB, before rapping how he might crash out and bounce out on Floyd, the street that his ops are from, and very place he would indeed end up losing his life. People in the comments would react to the craziness of this premonition, commenting how he really did crash out on Floyd like he said in the song. See, once again, not only is this case absolutely crazy for what went down, but Elo B recorded a song that was scheduled for upload this very day, saying that he's going to crash out on Floy and that he's repping Rookie Gang. Unfortunately, you know, sometimes you speak things into existence. It's not the first time we've seen rappers talk about things that they're going to do, or even, you know, even the situation where you had Mo3 from Dallas, you know, he enacted his own death. He had a music video where he was in his own coffin, and it wasn't long till he lost his life. These things are really unfortunate, but this is the energy that he was putting out. As we know, we've got to know Elo's personality. He was ready to really just crash out. He was ready to do anything that he had to. He was determined. No one was telling him stop. Ain't no one in that car gonna tell Elo B to not do what he was finna do. And unfortunately, that might have ended up leading to the lives of those around him being lost too, perhaps unnecessarily. But again, this is why this is so crazy. The song was recorded, right, and it had been planned to be uploaded that night. And these are the lyrics. You know, it's hard to even comprehend. People in the comments would also pay their respects to Elo, saying that he stood on all the stuff that he rapped about and went out the same day as he dropped the song, rapping how he was living the same way. Some people commented it's crazy how many people died behind this song, as eventually the people close to KB from his hood's numerous alliances would decide to capitalize on this tragedy, making a disrespectful reply on the same beat as the Big Bucks anthem, which would ultimately lead to another rapper losing his life far too young. As the gunsmoke settled, those people who were happy to see Elo gone would hop in the booth and take part in dissing him, most notably 3 rappers from different factions who would all join together in their hate towards the 6 Deuce Crips, making a song called 2K or Deuce Killer. This included Meeski Money, who was locked in with the 6 through the 064 Alliance, and the rapper Bookie Glocks, also known as BBG Tai Tai, from the BBG clique, whose member LB Slime had allegedly been killed by Elo back in 2018. And they would be joined by the rapper Rayster from the Monster Gang clique, who have been close with BBG for quite a long time too. Bookie and Big Bucks Von from 26 Solway were actually friends turned enemies, with some comments on Reddit suggesting that he'd stolen a gun from Von's older brother, sparking the beef. Bookie was from 44 Lex. So look, I'm going to stop there, okay? Because look, if you want to learn more about this situation, if you want to go deeper, if you want to find out about the murders that took place after that 2K song released, that individual that we just discussed there, Meeski Money, ends up losing his life. And once again, this is just another case where that killer demonic energy just keeps getting put out and it keeps on coming back. And look, I get no satisfaction in reporting on that situation. I'm not pushing this gang war. I'm not trying to be no scorekeeper. I'm not trying to be no, you know, this ain't no scoreboard video, right? This is a complete tragedy, and it just goes to show you that this kind of energy, unfortunately, doesn't really get you anywhere. You know, these kinds of songs, they put an even bigger target on your back, okay? These are guys that are dealing with real situations, you know, revenge killings, and unfortunately, some guys, they're just never going to make it out. You know, they're too deep in the streets. They've done too much. Somebody like KB6, you know, allegedly as many as 4 or 5 bodies under his belt. Somebody like that is not going to survive staying in the city. And even though he was a popping rapper, he probably didn't have the resources to get out. Even 30 Deep Grimy couldn't get himself out, even as the most popping drill rapper in the city, before at least the cops caught up with him, before the enemies could. But you know, Meeski Money obviously suffers his own unfortunate fate in the video. If you continue watching that and we find out everything that happens with him, I just wanted to shine a light on this situation, the KB6 and Elo B incident, because again, it was just one of the cases that just was so unique and just so uniquely tragic compared to things that I'd covered before. Everything's tragic. Any time a life is lost, doesn't matter what you've done, it's always tragic. And unfortunately, people are pushed to do bad things. You know, hurt people. It is a never-ending cycle of violence, and there's bigger institutional reasons why these things happen, and that's something we cover in the video. But I just wanted to shine a light on this particular story. To me, this was this was probably the craziest shootout that I've ever seen in a story related to a gang war. It's very tragic. It's very messed up. It's very sad, and it really does encapsulate just how messed up the streets of St. Louis really can get. So I hope you found that interesting. I hope you learned something from it. You know, God forbid if you're a young man or young woman, but you know, more likely a young man dealing with situations like this, coming from an area like this. I know a lot of young guys in St. Louis have watched this video and taken this in and found it really a realistic depiction of what's going on. You know, I would just compel you to just think twice before you crash out and throw your life away. You only get one life. You only get one shot at this thing we call life, and it's a gift. We're lucky to be alive. Some people have gone through very dangerous situations and escaped within an inch of their life. And I do not condone the gang warfare. I do not condone the negativity. We're just trying to raise awareness and get to the truth and understanding of these stories that are impactful in the music culture. I'm here originally for the music. The first thing that got me into St. Louis is the music. Big Bucks Von, Big Bucks Trey, two of my favorite rappers out of St. Louis. Some of their songs, like Task Force on Me, probably my favorite song out of St. Louis from this whole video. You know, coming out of the big bucks, like Elo B didn't really have an opportunity to make as much music as Von and Trey. I think that they've got very promising futures. You know, I'm hearing that dealing with incarceration right now, but I just don't go out like these guys. Unfortunate situation. This is a path to avoid, and I hope that we can all learn something from this. I appreciate the gravity of the situation, and I just pray for the next generation of people coming through in St. Louis, man. Let's do better. Let's follow that positive path. Let's maybe, you know, think about other things that you could do with your life other than crashing out and waging war on the streets. So I hope you found that interesting. If you want to learn more, go and check out the video. It's 3.5 hours. There's a whole bunch of different stories from the city. Some of them more inspiring than others, some of them more tragic than others. And I just wanted to shine a light on this because I feel like this one was really impactful. So thank you for watching. Thank you for checking this one out. And I will catch you in the next video. Appreciate it. Peace out.